Guys, how's it going?
Hi, Shane. Fine.
It seems like the group just gets smaller and smaller, huh? Okay, well, I guess we'll get started. Thank you guys for coming. I'm going to share my screen here. You guys see anything?
Yep.
You see a white screen?
No, I see Windows Working Group Term 1, updated 7 minutes ago.
This, okay. Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to see. All right, so this is, I guess, where we're tracking our things that we're working on. I had another one up. This is the project, and if I go into ZenHub, there's one more issue that's not showing up on the project. And it's this MSI installer one here. And Joe put that it's tracked in the MSI repo now. So that's over here. So it looks like you guys are tracking the MSI stuff in a whole separate project. Is that right?
I'm not aware of that.
Maybe just Joe did it then. Okay, so maybe these are some of the ideas that Joe had. And we'll go over those here in a second.
Will Joe join?
I was expecting him to be here, but he's not here today.
Oh, that's a pity. Yeah, we were discussing something, but I was looking forward to see him here. And
I just sent him a Slack. Maybe he'll hop on. He gets it. All right. Well, let's see. So I think this right here, I think this has been done. This was something I think I had you doing, Marcus. You were going to verify some default config options, like remove them from the config and see if the defaults work. I believe that was verified.
We had an email exchange about what is the expectation or what is the purpose of 4 config types. So we are currently 3 from your side and 1 from my side. So this should be a documentation text and be implemented.
I think I saw that in the other one here.
So they are called old config and default config, custom config, and new config. So we should keep them separated and well defined. This is something else. Oh, no, I see. This is what then I got confused. So so the default config options are formally, they have been in the minion config file and they seem to have removed in the latest versions. So the IPC mode is set very deep inside, no need anymore to set them in a minion config file.
Okay, let me open this up here.
Oh, and what did I found? The salt event contains this check. Could disappear between 2. So, oh my God, what did I meant with my question? Could maybe this to me now looks like oh yeah, I see. This is just a suggestion that this is a self-test which should not appear in salt event, which is continuously called. So I just made a probably not very efficient tuning suggestion. This should be tested once at startup, but not at salt event. So at each salt event, it's tested again and again and again, and it probably will only change at startup time. So this is a reasonable test to perform, but maybe not always at salt event. This is what I meant with this comment.
Okay. So let's make a note of that.
Or verify whether I have a wrong impression of when it's checked. And probably you should only tune after you have put it into, if this is not with a, well, it should be moved because it could be confusing to somebody who writes it there. And the second sentence is something which is process. Yeah, so this is it is now correctly set, right? Then the minion contains the common process set IPC to in such systems.
Okay.
Yeah, it is no longer set in the file salt conf minion, so it should even disappear from the comments then.
Okay, and that's on develop branch. It's on develop. You're seeing that?
I just looked into develop, yeah.
Okay.
And it's on maybe even the latest minion config file, so c salt conf minion. There is the second comment saying process communication set IPC mode TCP on such system. It's no longer needed, so it's confusing to the reader. Yep. If somebody reads it carefully and he thinks, wow, I'm on Windows and I need to set it to TCP, no longer the case.
They don't need to because it's there automatically?
I think so.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this is also what I observe. Well, maybe it should be synchronized to when the change, the default IPC mode is effective. Then at that time, then the comment is no longer necessary. So the comment should follow the code.
Okay, I think the purpose of the comment though is so somebody did not try anything other than IPC on Windows. If you don't comment this, then somebody might try something else here.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see. Yeah.
So I can see wisdom in leaving this comment so that somebody doesn't on a Windows box use a different IPC mode. So it should be TCP on Windows, yeah.
That's up to you.
Okay. That's the only one that should work. So you're saying in the code, it never even allowed anything other than TCP on Windows, maybe? Trying to look at what the code does here.
Yeah, that's the folder.
That's what we should do, actually.
When you follow the link in default IPC mode in salt config, then there should be now, where does this lead to? This goes into development branch. So if it's Windows, then it's TCP. So it's set right from the beginning.
Okay, that's default though.
Yep.
Where would that get used? Okay, so all that means is that if it's not set in config, then that's what it will be. But you could still override that value by setting something in the config file.
Okay. So what if we move this?
Hey, Joe, we're on the Windows Workgroup meeting. We're waiting for you.
Another thing I like to do is if it runs one time, you do.
Yeah, I don't. This I'm. What the default is doing. What takes precedence? The default or what the user says. Anyhow, so the user is not required to take an action.
You're familiar with T1, right?
Yeah.
Right. Right. If they leave the config alone, then it's going to set to TCP like it should.
Mm-hmm.
They can still override it some crazy setting if they want.
Yeah.
It will be overridden by whatever is in the config file.
Oh, okay.
Which they normally wouldn't want them to do, and that's why we put the note here about Windows. So we could mention that it's TCP by default.
This would improve documentation. Yeah, right.
Okay, so we could do something like that. We can. Okay, so let's do that.
Just make sure you unconfigure them. This is it. It's not.
Yep.
Yeah, they do. It's crappy though. Or I mean, so if you put it on headset mode, the audio quality on the headphone.
Something like that, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, and then the event, then where this checking takes place, maybe we have a look too, and then this would be my.
So this is kind of a fail-safe here. So if it's Windows and IPC mode is not in ops. So ops basically loads the config file. So if IPC mode isn't in ops, and in this case, well, IPC mode would still be there because of this.
Yeah.
That here. Because it's going to go through and grab
The default mode in uppercase letters. So the question is whether it's that failsafe is executed at every salt event, which.
Okay. Right.
Maybe there's even a reason why it should recheck at every salt event. It just made me curious.
Yeah, why would that change between events?
Yeah. It's just a case for either documentation, because if somebody observed that, I think it's just not, it's very improbable. So if we believe that the config is changing within salt events, then very bad things happened in any case.
Hey guys, can you explain what a salt event is?
Yeah, so every It's the way Salt communicates with the master and back and forth. There's an event bus, and commands are pushed down on a listen bus, and they're returned back on a published bus, or maybe I got that backwards. But basically, it's how they communicate. It's how data is sent back and forth, and every time something happens on a minion.
So
like
yeah, but isn't the configuration loaded up when the minions are starting or when the masters are starting, and only then? So I don't think they can change, or if you change them, it won't affect the running stuff.
You're saying if you change TCP mode after the Salt minion's up, then it doesn't affect the bus?
I'm pretty sure it won't, yes. So basically, whenever you set up your configuration, it's a static configuration. When you start Salt minion, it reads and it evaluates all the configurations and take action based on the configuration. Once it's doing that, it won't look again in the file. If you change it, you have to manually reboot.
Restart.
Yes. And that's valid for master as well.
Okay.
For example, if you go in a minion and set a different master, it won't take effect. You have to manually go and restart the Salt minion.
Yeah, this is also my understanding.
So yeah, so that's why we're trying to understand the purpose of this code here. When would the IPC mode change? I mean, if we already have an event bus up, then we've already configured all of this, right? So why are we checking this every time an event fires?
Yeah, I don't think we should do that. So it's possible if it's not there, just to set it as being the default, but we should not check it more than just when we start the minion.
Right.
It's actually, so basically, we have a configuration for Salt API, we have a configuration for Salt minion, we have a configuration for Salt master. Maybe this code is shared among those, so they set it here so it take action for all of them instead of setting them manually.
Right, but doesn't ops get populated from the config and from the defaults?
It should, yes.
So this shouldn't even be needed.
No.
This is this check is 2 years old.
Yeah.
I was interested to see what it was before.
Yeah, I think it's easy just to comment that out and see what breaks, because no, for real, I don't think it's going to do anything. I mean, things should be set up properly already.
Right.
I think it's just like a redundant check or failsafe.
It could be, yeah.
I wonder if there's some fail-safe though, some edge case they're trying to avoid.
Right. This is the one thing we need to decide whether it could, in a very bizarre situation, be necessary or not. Because it's even checking if opts is necessary. I just glimpsed a few lines above. And it's not, it's also taking into possibility that opts is 0 in code 200 and 204 or something.
Yeah. There's many event.phs here. Oh, all he changed went to the new platform thing. Okay, so this has been here for quite a while, 4 years, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see a little above, it even checks if options is none. This should really never happen. How could the minion start up and then in the event case, so it tries to set up an event, it should be a problem much earlier, because without options, he has no master, he has no ID, he's just very, very incapable of doing events at this point in time, I would say.
So this may be the first time it sets up the event bus. Options will be empty.
Really?
Yeah. So then it says, well, if it's a master, then we're going to load it. Load the master ops, and otherwise we're going to assume minion ops. It's expecting a dictionary. And if it doesn't find a dictionary, or finds none, then it's going to initialize to an empty dict.
Yeah. And it's doing it not, yeah, that's just,
And that's happening every time too.
Right.
So if that's the case, then we shouldn't need this at all, since it's getting loaded here.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's redundant.
And you could almost pop this under this, I think. I don't know. Or if not ops or something.
I think if I may add, this is just a tuning discussion. So we could gain some milliseconds in the event response, which I'm very eagerly expecting. But maybe we should mark this as a tuning thing, and see if we have other things to discuss. I just want to point out that it's working, and it's definitely a fail-safe, better safe than sorry way of doing, and it's just a comment into tuning,
Okay.
performance tuning.
Okay. Is that fair?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. PKI dir.
It's again set as default minion opts.
Okay. As in here, right?
Right, and this is not, strictly speaking, not true for Windows. This is very nitpicking, sorry. There is no slash, etc. under Windows.
Right. So on the build script, we could go through and search this script and replace all the /etcs with csalt.
Yep.
Csalt comp or something when we, because I think the build script just copies this over and puts it in, and this becomes the default script.
My personal opinion is that all this comment should not be inside there. This is a very personal opinion. It makes it difficult to go to. It should be. The comments makes it difficult to understand what's inside. And all the documentation should be on a website, not inside a config file.
Okay.
Maybe this is just my personal opinion, but I wanted to say.
No, I don't think that's an option. Maybe you don't have access to internet. Maybe you just install this somehow from a DVD or
Okay.
something.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's pretty common in Linux boxes to have a lot of comments in a config file.
Yep.
And I don't.
This is a good point. You should be able to install and do not need more documentation.
Okay.
But then it should be kind of either contain static text that for Windows it's not etc. but under salt, and then we're fine. Maybe we just add another line of comment, or make it relative. In fact, as effectively config file is relative, so we could refer to the root directory, and then or make it explicit. But essentially, there's a long wish of the community to have it not only fixed at C:\salt, and this would then be also be needed to be reflected. I personally think I make no attempts to move it from C:\salt because I'm happy with it personally. So, but there are other people who wish it to be movable to program files or anywhere, which is, I think, it's a fair demand, but I have no idea how to achieve it.
Right. I think the discussion there has been to do something like C program data. Is that what it is? Something like that. If we're going to use program files. I don't know. Do we want our config right there, though? I wouldn't want the config there, would we? Because that's
at that point in time, we could separate it. That's in fact most usual to have the program files bin, all the bin stuff into program files, and configuration into a separate. Directory.
Yeah.
So
but
this
needs to be not accessible. It can't be accessible to everybody, and I think program data.
Exactly.
Because we don't want our config editable by the normal user.
Right.
So I think the config still needs to go in program files, wherever we're moving it to. Or we lock it down. See, salt does lock down the directory anyways. When salt starts, it applies a bunch of permissions to the PKI directory.
Yep, it could do that regularly even, and I think that's not even a waste of. That's not a waste of time. It could be this I think is very precautious, and I would understand that it even regularly sets down access or restricts access to the configuration file wherever it is. Oh.
Okay.
Something like this.
Yeah, so there's.
So can we create some sort of a legend? Because these paths are going to be spread out in this config file in multiple places. I've seen below there's a PKI folder, and it's again the same thing. Can we create like between squares like config folder or config directory and have a legend explaining like on Linux is / etc. / salt, where on Windows can be install location / etc. or whatever that is on Windows.
Right.
Fair.
Good. I think I had some docs for this, and I can't remember if I put this on our enterprise or if I have it out in the open, that just explained what the relationship was between Etsy and on Linux versus where the locations are on Windows.
Yeah, because you don't want to have like very long explanations for every single option we have in the config file.
Hmm. I can't remember where I put that. I wonder if it's in my docs. Yeah, I had something like this.
Ah, looks good.
So something like this in the docs, or you wanting to put it in this file, in the config file itself?
So I would put it, it's really hard to navigate in a text file or config file. You don't have like the go-to thing to jump when you want to find more information. So that's why it's hard to see where to put it. But I would put it somewhere like explaining. So you have the file roots, you have the config folder, or like the common directories as you put it above.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the configuration file, just put these directories in square brackets.
Mm.
Like for example, say, I feel like in the common directory, you don't have a configuration directory. I would add that as well. And say like configuration or conf dir in square brackets / minion. That's where the configuration is for the minion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's. What if we searched and replaced them? Like when we build Salt, we copy this file over. It wouldn't be anything, I don't think, to just search this whole thing and replace every Etsy Salt with sea salt conf in this file.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick that route because that means Windows is like second-hand thing, citizen. I would create like a pattern and each installer on each system to fill or to replace the pattern if you want, or just have like a general enough pattern so the user understands what's going on. I don't know if, can I write somewhere? Yeah, I have the chat. Let's see if this works.
So here's what I put here. Etsy salt equals sea salt conf. That's pretty much the translation there.
Mm.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I would say like this is the minion configuration file. I put in the chat.
Okay.
And then whenever you want to point something to like etc. salt, then you say conf dir. And you can have a legend like conf dir.
Joe?
Yeah.
And the question is it forward or backslash? I guess you could leave it that way.
Yeah,
To
you
be honest,
could.
I think it works on Windows as well.
It
It
does.
works on Windows as well.
Oh, I see what you're saying on that next thing. So you have conf.dir and you have root.dir.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Or yeah, if you need like the PKI stuff, you can say like conf.dir/PKI, for example, or you can define like a different PKI dir
Right.
for the next one. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's an option. I know which is the best.
This would affect more than just Windows though, since we're going to be editing the config file. So this would be something outside of the scope of the Windows working group and would probably need to be brought forward. Core maybe, or community at large. A SEP might be in order.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to suggest, there might be an echo. Shane, could you mute your mic real quick?
Fine.
Thanks. I wanted to see if you guys had any interest in moving towards an INI file.
That's a good question.
And that would look something like, I'm going to put it in the chat. Just like a quick example. Because one of the benefits to moving to an INI file is this is a very accessible Windows format. There's a lot of APIs that are written for extraction. So pulling this information like conf.dir, root.dir out from this section header that's in the square brackets, that could make the file a bit more accessible instead of having it in a text file. I don't know if there's been talk of that, but so far it seems like having a text file is a little not so much of a Windows practice and more of like a Linux practice.
I'm very glad that you mentioned that. It's all completely true what you said. I completely support your notion. The MSI installer would need little to very little code to work with an NSI file. It's very baked into the system how to deal with any INI files. It would make the whole process of configuration under Windows very sleek.
Mm-hmm.
It would break the text file compatibility with all the other systems, though. This is why I didn't even mention it. But from a Windows perspective, and I'm a pure Windows guy, this is awesome. Let's do it. We just need to be aware that it breaks file compatibility with all the other systems, unless all the other systems change to INI files, which I do not see at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think we should diverge from the way we're doing it just because we'd have to write a whole nother thing for parsing out the config, and I don't want to diverge for Windows any more than we already have. In fact, it'd be better to bring things back together.
Well,
try to do things the same way as much as we can.
Okay. I just wanted to make it at least a suggestion while we were on the topic, or maybe if we don't switch the file format itself, we still follow the INI format sectioning for the text file or for the configuration file to use that style.
I just wonder why they didn't use YAML.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, that's. I even went so far, it would even be beneficial to convert the YAML into INI, then make all the setup in INI and convert it back to YAML. Even that would be more easier than to try to read it in YAML on Windows. So the ini stuff is very well supported.
And if you want to go pure Windows, then the answer is to put it all in the registry, not use an INI file. INI is kind of Windows 98, old way of doing things, and now we're going the registry. I don't think that's easy to maintain.
Yeah, although I also agree with the notion of moving things towards C program files, and then that would support if someone's installing on a 32-bit versus a 64-bit, it will put it in program files or program files 86. I find that to be, again, a little bit cleaner. And again, this is Windows, so that's very much of a Windows environment thing to do.
So I have a question. Are we trying to solve an existing problem, or we just want to improve stuff in case? I don't know. Because do we have this need to change it?
I don't think so. Maybe we're talking about another issue here. One, it was part of our Science Dollar initiative to also support installing salt anywhere. Was that part of what we were trying to do with the MSI? Or are we just trying to get an MSI?
Oh, the ini discussion maybe is just not on the list.
Okay.
Not at all. It's just an idea. Let's have it. It's not solving an existing problem. It's an idea, and let's label it like an idea. Moving the salt installer into not only into C salt is an old request, which I do not see here, and the MSI installer could easily do that if the no soft installer is capable of. So the MSI is not helping in that direction.
Okay.
But just take the fruit if it's ready to go, if it's ready.
So is that something we want to add then
I do not want.
to our initiative?
I'm happy with sea salt actually.
Well, we could default to sea salt, but let people install it elsewhere if they wanted to.
So Joseph, I think your idea is good, but it's not on our, it's not on the short list of things.
Okay, so for this, hey, can you mute Joe? So for this, I put this little note here to change some of the wording in the config file.
Okay.
You guys good with this as a solution to these two issues here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's go back to our other list. Chad has done some work on this here.
This is good news.
So we can pull some logging, but he kind of named all the functions kind of weird. So I added another task here to have him make the names of the functions and the name of the module a lot shorter. They were long, crazy names. But a lot of this work is done. So kudos to Chad.
The advantage, of course, is that you can remotely query the log file.
Right.
Easily. You can also collect files, but querying a database is neater than copying files.
He has a lot of exposed functions like this. That might need to be a hidden func. Get event generator, you know. See, that one looks good. It's just something like that. I don't know. So there still needs to be some work done on this, but he's got a lot of the work done here. So. And see, Rigel, I think this was one we assigned to him, and I haven't seen him on since we had our first meeting. He said that he had a wrapper around the service module that he was already using, and he didn't think it would be too hard to put that in a state. So I was hoping he'd be here today. And I still have not had a chance to look at this. Is Rari still on? Did Rari's leave? Anyway, I haven't tried this, so I don't know what the dependency issues are going to be. Last time I tried 3.6, a lot of our dependencies wouldn't build because they weren't. That's been enough time. They've probably been fixed. I'd like to go to 3.7 if we can, and if everything builds on 3.7, I'd like to go there because that's where a lot of the tools that we want on Python 3 reside, like the async functions they want, and a lot of the speed optimizations, I think. I also talked to Tom about this. Since we bundle our own version of Python, he doesn't really see a need for us to package Python 2 and Python 3. On Windows, we could actually just go to Python 3 right now and only build Python 3 packages. But I think, Marcus, you had some concerns about speed on Python 3, is that right?
I had no time of testing. So this is the miraculous 5 minutes delay, and I would love to sort that out. So as soon as you do not have, I need some testing time, and then I'm good with Python 3 too. For now, I don't know what is just lagging 5 minutes, and I would not jump into that 5 minutes hole.
That's right. You had an issue on that, didn't you?
Right. It's weeks old that you commented that you tried it and you did not found any 5 minutes lag. That's wonderful news, and I would love to. I even had less time than I thought on this. By the way, I will be away in 10 minutes.
Okay. What's your username?
Marcus Kramer. Can you change that name? This is the most silliest name I have here. I need to find somebody who can help me to change the username in GitHub.
You should be able to just go to profile, edit profile. Maybe not. Let's see.
Let's not try that. We have. Yes, there is this. Who is using from on the phone? Who's using Python 2 versus Python 3? I'm still with Python 2. Is anybody on Python 3 on Windows?
I kind of develop mostly on Python 2 and do all my testing on 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Just kind of have to support both, but
I will get into the testing soon.
Okay. Just wondering why you're not showing up in here. Is it only showing? Why am I not seeing you?
That's funny.
Is it 2 T's?
Yep.
Huh.
I don't know why.
You did. I remember seeing the issue.
Oh yeah, thank you for the merge module. I already have it there. And then Joseph, you might have noticed that I added a small utility function to open the log, the MSI log in that Microsoft Visual Code. It's wonderfully represented in code, and there is the last will be opened.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I can't find the issue. I'll have to find it another day. And I don't know how many people are using Python 3, especially on Windows, since it does seem to be a little slower, and we've had a lot of complaints about it.
Yeah, I think for a time there should be both. So switching to leaving 2 is well, I will simply lag behind.
Okay.
I even
Well, I won't push that then, but it is going away at the end of the year, so maybe.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we've talked about all of these. Is there anything else we need to bring up here? Need to talk about? Oh, I did want to talk about what you've put here, Joe. You put a bunch of things.
All right. I wasn't aware that you were writing that into projects. I have to have a look into projects then. Is this the minimal viable version you wanted to create?
For the most part, although there's going to probably be a few more to-dos that need to get added, but I thought that with this project, it'll just be a little bit easier to track in a more granular way.
Okay.
Exactly the features, changes, settings, etc. So you can kind of see how I have it laid out.
Yeah. Okay.
And so far, how I have those 5 action items or those 5 to-dos, that was just like a brief comparison between the Nullsoft installer, its capabilities, and then how they differ from the MSI installer. So that was actually something, Marcus, we can talk about right there, is that handled the Python 2 deprecation warning. If that's something necessary, not necessary to add. So.
Well, as long as I'm stuck with Python 2, I do not want to add a warning, but
because I did find that in the Nullsoft installer, is there is a Python 2 deprecation warning.
yeah.
When they installed Python 2, it does?
Yeah. It shows up in like a red italicized text within the program or the application.
So smart of me.
Have you seen my comment on the 4th config option? Then this to-do should reflect the 4th.
I did see that, Marcus. I saw that in the email, and
His computer just
Oh, there we go.
popped back. All right.
It's complaining about my internet connection. It's odd.
Where did you see it pop up the warning?
So I saw it pop up the warning as soon as I opened up the Nullsoft installer and generated it for the first time. And just Marcus, how it shows that red italicized warning text for me when I ran the Nullsoft installer and I was presented with the application. That was the exact format of the Python 2 deprecation warning. That's what it looked like.
So I just opened it, and that's the first thing I get.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I already have it installed, and then it prompts me to uninstall it.
Although Shane's muted, Marcus, he just said that's what he gets. That's what Shane gets. Every time I see the copyright, I always stare at 2011.
Yeah, I will concentrate on the silent install anyhow. So the warning will be graphical, and I will first move on the silent side. So all these config settings must be programmed and be chosen, and this will be for the next time. So the graphical interface will, maybe we find somebody who is more capable than I. In our company, we will use it as a silent installer only. So I have little incentives to move the graphical installer.
Can you take a look at that, Joe? About getting the GUI in there?
Yeah, for sure.
So if we can kind of try to make the problem on the left and the right side, I will work on the left, and the graphical is kind of confusing, and I never changed it really. I'm happy that I'm happy to help, but I will concentrate on the silent installer.
Gotcha. Yeah, and yeah, it's a rather large application in general. So I think between that, we'll both start to get a little bit familiar with the other side too as we move through it.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else, guys?
What does a premature exit means?
So one of the things that's pretty common about installers is, let's say you have some settings that you've changed in the installer, or you're halfway through it. Instead, like when you hit quit or exit, sometimes you're presented with another warning that is a secondary confirmation that says, "Do you really want to exit?"
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's missing, but this could be then. Maybe this needs to be programmed. Okay.
Oh, yeah, and it's none of these were very, very intense operations so far that I have in this project. But like I said, this was just a quick exercise in just looking at the differences, just some obvious ones.
Does ours warn you?
Yeah.
I like this one. Yeah, I see.
So again, none of these are very intense things to do, but just developing applications out of Windows, sometimes you have certain expectations and you're just so used to seeing certain things, it's weird not to see a box like that appear.
Okay. Good. Oh, and I added maybe on my fork of the repository, I added 2 more items labeled as bugs because I got aware recently that I need 2 more config settings right at the start of the minion. So this would be whether the minion ID is cached or cached. So I'm in our setup. Do you still hear me? In our setup, the minion ID must not be cached. So the minion installer must set this minion cached ID to no or to false, and for the time being, it's missing. So when you, this is a absolutely must. It's not even documented here. We could add it also to documentation. Right. So probably you are aware that the minion ID can be cached in several places, but it may also be not cached. And this is this option is what we currently use, or what we use. Oh, it is documented. Perfect. It's default.
So does that creates the minion underscore ID file? What is this?
Probably. I'm not sure what it creates.
To a file. Default is true.
Correct. It is written to file.
That generates that minion underscore ID file. I always thought somebody created that. I didn't know that was this.
Anyhow, so this is one of the first things I will implement is adding 2 more
config options in the
config options, which would be the caching ID and the removal of the domain name, which was added by me a year ago or half a year ago.
Okay. Well, what is the domain name? Is that a part of the minion config settings somewhere?
It is part of the host name. So the fully qualified domain name is the host name plus the domain name. And somebody wants to have the minions names, like here you see, it's fully qualified domain name. And in our case, the domain name should be left out.
Is that a salt config? Like
Yes.
salt code change?
What?
Is that a new configuration option?
Well, it was a year ago, so depending on
Is this what it is?
it's the opposite. So it's when fully qualified domain name does not append your domain, then you can add it here. And so the opposite of that would be to leave it out. which is a merged pull request from I don't know which time, and it will eventually appear in a released salt minion in the past or the future. I haven't checked that.
Can you get me that that PR?
Well, I can guide you through in my last 2 minutes. I'm actually over my time, but
Okay.
let's
Well, I mean,
have a look.
Can you just
No, in fact, I will send it to you. As Marcus, I will send it to you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have to leave, and thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you for coming. Well, we're done anyways, I think. So thank you, Marcus, for your time and everybody for coming. We'll go ahead
See you.
and end. Anybody else have anything else? We'll see you, Marcus.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Anything else from anybody else here on the call? All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. We're going to go ahead and end. We'll talk to you next month. See ya.